People don't notice quiet girls. Not really. They notice loud laughter echoing through hallways, dramatic arguments, whispered gossip that spreads like wildfire. They notice confidence. They notice beauty. They notice anything that demands attention. But quiet becomes background noise. And when background noise disappears, no one really asks why. That was me. I wasn't bullied, not exactly. I wasn't hated. I was just avoided. Like people had collectively agreed, without ever speaking, that interacting with me required too much effort for too little reward. I didn't blame them. I didn't know how to talk without overthinking every word. Did that sound weird? Was that too short, too long, too awkward? Did I smile enough, too much? It was exhausting. So I stopped trying. It was easier to be alone. Easier to expect nothing. Easier to disappear. Until someone sat next to me. Chapter 1. The girl no one sat next to. The empty seat beside me had a reputation. I'm serious. It wasn't officially labeled or anything, but it might as well have been marked with a bright red warning sign. Sit here if you want awkward silence and regret. Every morning, it was the same routine. Students walked into class. They scanned the room. Their eyes passed over empty seats, then landed on the one next to me. And then, they kept walking. I got used to it. Actually, that's a lie. You don't get used to it. You just learn how to pretend it doesn't hurt. I would sit there, quietly arranging my pens in straight lines, pretending I didn't notice how quickly people looked away. Pretending I didn't hear the whispers. She's kind of weird. Does she even talk? I heard she ignored someone once. That last one wasn't even true. I just didn't hear them. Or maybe I panicked. Or maybe I thought they were talking to someone else. There were too many maybes when it came to me. So I stopped questioning it. If people didn't want to sit with me, that was fine. It was easier that way. Right. Right. That's what I told myself. Until someone broke the pattern. It happened on a Tuesday, which already made it suspicious, because nothing interesting ever happens on Tuesdays. The classroom door slid open, and in walked a girl I had never seen before. She didn't hesitate like everyone else. Didn't scan the room with careful calculation. She just walked. Straight toward me. My heart immediately started racing. No. No, no, no. She must be going somewhere else. Behind me, maybe. Or... She stopped. Right next to my desk. I froze. Then, she pulled out the chair beside me. And sat down. Just like that. No hesitation. No visible regret. No subtle scooting of the chair further away. Nothing. Hi, she said. I blinked. Because clearly, she had made a mistake. Hi, I echoed, my voice quieter than I intended. She smiled. Actually smiled. I'm Leela, she said. You're in this class, right? That was a strange question. Yes. Good, she nodded, as if that confirmed something important. I didn't want to accidentally sit in the wrong class and commit social suicide on my first day. I stared at her. Was that a joke? Was I supposed to laugh? A second passed. 2 seconds. 3. Oh, I said a little too suddenly. Right, that would be bad. Smooth. Very smooth. She didn't laugh. But she didn't look uncomfortable either. Instead, she tilted her head slightly. You don't talk much, do you? My stomach dropped. There it was. The realization. The moment she would regret sitting here. Not really, I admitted. She hummed. Cool. 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 Before I could process that completely confusing response, the teacher walked in and class started. I spent the entire lesson hyper-aware of her presence. Every small movement felt amplified. Was I breathing too loud? Was I sitting weird? Why did my hands suddenly feel like they didn't belong to me? I kept my eyes on my notebook, pretending to take notes. I expected her to move seats the next day. That's what always happened. People tried once. Then they realized. Then they left. So I didn't think much of it. Until the next day, she came back and sat in the same seat. Again. Chapter 2, Accidental Friendship. Leela talked. A lot. Not in an overwhelming, suffocating way. More like a steady stream. Like a radio playing in the background, except somehow I didn't want to turn it off. Okay, so, she said one day, spinning her pen between her fingers. Important question. I blinked. What? If you had to fight one animal to the death, what would it be? I stared at her. What? Think about it, she continued seriously. You need something you can beat, but not something too easy or it's embarrassing. I don't think I want to fight any animals. Wrong answer, she said immediately. You're already in the arena, choose. Why was I in an arena? Why was this happening? A chicken, I tried. She gasped. A chicken, that's brutal. I thought you said something I could beat. Yeah, but emotionally, could you recover from that? I hesitated. No. She nodded approvingly. Good self-awareness. A small laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. I froze. Because I hadn't meant to. But it was already out there. Leela's eyes lit up. Wait, you laugh. I what? I thought you were one of those mysterious, quiet types who only speaks in dramatic one-liners. I'm not mysterious, I said quickly. I'm just bad at talking. Same thing, she shrugged. It really was. But somehow, talking to her didn't feel as terrifying. Still uncomfortable. Still awkward. But not unbearable. And then, she started including me. At first it was small. Come sit with us at lunch. I almost said no. Actually, I did say no. Twice. But she kept asking. And one day, for reasons I still don't fully understand, I said yes. That was how I met the others. They were louder. More confident. The kind of people who filled spaces naturally. When Leela introduced me, I felt every pair of eyes land on me at once. This is her, someone whispered. Not quietly enough. I heard it. Of course I did. I always did. My chest tightened. Here it comes. The regret. The awkward shift. The slow distancing. But Leela just smiled. Yeah, she said, and she's staying. Staying. The word felt heavy. Like something fragile placed in my hands. I didn't know how to hold it. Didn't know how long it would last. But for the first time, I wanted it to. Chapter 3, The Boy Who Did Look Away. The first time I noticed him, it wasn't dramatic. No slow motion. No sudden music playing in the background. No cinematic moment where the world paused. It was actually very inconvenient. Because I was mid-panic. Just act normal, Leela whispered. I am acting normal, I whispered back. You're holding your fork like it personally offended you. I looked down. She wasn't wrong. I adjusted my grip immediately. Better, she nodded. Less I might stab someone, more I eat like a functioning human. I hate you. No, you don't. Also true. Lunch was still something I hadn't fully adjusted to. Too many people. Too many conversations happening at once. Too many chances to say something wrong. So I mostly stayed quiet, listening, nodding when necessary, laughing half a second too late. No one seemed to mind. Or maybe they were just being polite. I was still trying to figure that out. That reminds me, someone across the table said. Kai said he'd meet us here today. My heart did something strange. I didn't know who Kai was. Which meant new person, new interaction, new chance to mess everything up. Great. Relax, Leela murmured, noticing the way I stiffened. He's harmless. That's what people say before something goes wrong. She snorted. You're dramatic. I'm realistic. You're pessimistic. I'm prepared. You're... Hey. The voice came from behind me. I froze. Slowly, very slowly, I turned. And there he was. Kai. He didn't look intimidating. Not particularly loud or flashy. Just calm. Effortlessly so. His hair was slightly messy, like he hadn't bothered fixing it properly. His expression relaxed, like nothing in the world stressed him out. And his eyes. They weren't avoiding me. They were on me. Oh, Leela said, perfect timing this is. And then it happened. The worst possible thing that could happen. I tried to move. My hand knocked into my drink. The cup tipped. Time slowed. And then, splash. Right onto him. Silence. Complete, devastating silence. I stopped breathing. Because this was it. This was the moment. The moment everything ended. I'm so sorry, I blurted out, standing so fast my chair screeched against the floor. I didn't mean to, I didn't see. I was talking too fast. Too loud. Too everything. Stop talking. Just stop talking. But I couldn't. Because panic had taken over. Then, wow. I froze. Slowly, I looked up. He glanced down at his soaked shirt. Then back at me. And he smiled. This is the most interesting thing that's happened to me all week. I blinked. What? I mean it, he continued. Usually lunch is just me eating and questioning my life choices. This, he gestured to himself, this is new. I stared at him. Because that was not the reaction I expected. At all. You're not mad. Should I be? He asked. Yes. He laughed. Actually laughed. And something about that. Something about how easy it was. Made my chest feel tight in a completely different way. I'm Kai, by the way, he added, like he wasn't currently drenched because of me. I know, I said softly. Good, that saves me from introducing myself twice. I hesitated. I'm sorry, I said again. Still fine, he replied. Then, after a pause. You owe me a drink, though. I blinked. I do. Yeah, he nodded. It's only fair. Okay. Why did that feel like a trap? Chapter 4, Learning How to Belong. After that, things shifted. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But enough that I noticed. Kai started sitting with us more often. At first, I tried not to look at him. Which was difficult. Because he kept talking to me. On purpose. Hey, he said one day, dropping into the seat across from me. Did you ever decide what animal you'd fight? I blinked. What? Leela told me about it, he said. Apparently you chose a chicken. I immediately looked at Leela. She grinned. Traitor. I didn't choose it, I muttered. I was forced into a hypothetical situation. That's worse, he said seriously. You didn't even pick your own battle. I panicked. Understandable. A small smile tugged at my lips before I could stop it. There it was again. That feeling. Unfamiliar. Warm. Dangerous. You're quieter today, he said suddenly. My heart skipped. Was that bad? I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he shrugged. Just don't disappear. Disappear. The word hit harder than it should have. I won't, I said quickly. Too quickly. He noticed. Of course he did. But he didn't push. Just nodded like he believed me. That made it worse. Because I wasn't sure I believed myself. It became a pattern. Small conversations. Short exchanges. Moments that shouldn't matter, but did. Like the time I dropped my pen, and he picked it up before I could. Careful, he said. At this rate, I'm going to think you're doing this on purpose. I'm not, I said quickly. Shame, he smiled. I was starting to feel special. I didn't know how to respond to that. So I just stared at him. Again. You do that a lot, he said. What? Look at me like I just said something confusing. You did. Fair. Or the time we walked out of class at the same time. It wasn't planned. Just happened. We stood there for a second. Awkward. Then, do you always walk this way? He asked. Yes. Cool, me too. That was clearly a lie. But he said it so casually that I didn't call him out. We walked together. In silence. But it wasn't uncomfortable. Which was new. Everything about this was new. One day, I realized something. Something terrifying. I was laughing more. Talking a little more. Looking forward to things. Looking forward to people. Looking forward to him. And that was a problem. Because I knew how this worked. Good things didn't stay. Not for me. So I tried to keep my distance. Emotionally. Mentally. I told myself it didn't mean anything. That he was just being nice. That I was just overthinking it. That this would end like everything else. But then, hey. I looked up. Kai was leaning against my desk. Want to grab a drink? He asked. You still owe me one. My heart started racing again. Now. Unless you've been secretly planning your escape route, he said. I haven't. Good, he smiled. That would have hurt my feelings. I hesitated. This felt like a line. A step forward. Something I couldn't undo. I don't know if I... Relax, he said gently. It's just a drink, not a life decision. For him, maybe. For me, it felt like both. But still. Okay, I said quietly. His smile widened just slightly. And for some reason, that felt like winning something I didn't know I was competing for. We walked together after school. The air felt different. Lighter. Or maybe that was just me. You're thinking too much again, he said. I'm not. You are. I'm not. You're arguing, he pointed out. That's new. I paused. Is it? Yeah, he said. I like it. My chest tightened again. That feeling. Again. Dangerous. Here, he said, handing me a drink. I took it carefully this time. No accidents, he added. I hate you. No, you don't. That sounded familiar. I took a small sip. Silence settled between us. But it wasn't empty. Just quiet. Comfortable. Then, you know, he said, glancing at me, you're not what I expected. I stiffened. What does that mean? I heard things, he shrugged. My stomach dropped. Of course. Of course he did. And, I asked, bracing myself. He looked at me for a moment. Then, they were wrong. My breath caught. I mean, he continued casually, you're awkward, that part's true. Thanks. But you're also, he paused, like he was choosing his words carefully. Real. Real. No one had ever called me that before. I didn't know what to do with it. So I just held on to it quietly. Like something fragile. Like something I didn't want to lose. But deep down, Even as I stood there, holding that moment, I felt it. The fear. Because now, I had something worth losing. And that was always where things started to break. Chapter 5, The First Crack. It happened on a day that felt normal. That was the worst part. Nothing dramatic, no warning, no sense that something was about to break. Just an ordinary afternoon. Leela had gone ahead to meet the others. I had stayed behind to finish something, though, if I was honest, I just needed a moment to breathe. Being around people still exhausted me. Not in a bad way. Just in a too much feeling everything all at once kind of way. I walked down the hallway slowly, my footsteps quiet against the floor. And then, voices. Familiar ones. I stopped. Not intentionally. My body just did. They shouldn't hang out with her so much. My heart skipped. Yeah, people are starting to notice. I knew those voices. They were part of the group. Not my group. But close enough. Close enough to matter. I should have walked away. I didn't. It's bad for their reputation. My chest tightened. They used to be more normal, you know. Normal. The word echoed in my head. And now it's like they're weird too. A pause. Then, especially Kai. Everything inside me stilled. They're saying he's changed. In a bad way. I mean, look who he hangs out with now. Laughter. Soft. Not loud enough to be cruel. Just quiet enough to feel real. I didn't realize I had stopped breathing until my lungs started to burn. They're going to ruin their image if they keep this up. I didn't wait to hear more. I turned. Walked away. Quietly. Like I always did. But this time, it didn't feel like disappearing. It felt like breaking. I made it to the bathroom before the tears came. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just silent. Like everything else about me. I stared at my reflection. Same face. Same quiet girl. Nothing had changed. So why had I ever thought things could change? They're right, I whispered. Because they were. Of course they were. People like me didn't just suddenly belong. Didn't suddenly become wanted. I had just mistaken kindness for something more. And now I was dragging them down with me. The worst part wasn't what they said. It was the fact that I believed it. Chapter 6, The Disappearing Act. The next day, I didn't sit with them. I told myself it was temporary. Just a little distance. Just until things went back to normal. But deep down, I knew what I was doing. I sat in the same seat as before. The one next to me empty again. Familiar. Safe. Lonely. Leela noticed immediately. She always did. She walked over, confusion written all over her face. Why are you sitting here? I just felt like it. That's not a real reason. It is for me. She frowned. You're coming to lunch, right? I can't. Why? I have work. You don't have work. I do today. She stared at me. Long enough that I had to look away. Did I do something? She asked quietly. That hurt. More than anything else so far. No, I said quickly. You didn't do anything. Then why are you acting like this? I'm not acting like anything. You are. I'm just busy. The lie sat heavy between us. She knew it. I knew it. But neither of us said it out loud. Fine, she said finally. But it didn't sound fine. Not even a little. I avoided them after that. Different hallways. Different timing. Different everything. It wasn't hard. Avoiding people was something I was good at. Something I had practiced for years. But this felt different. Because every step away felt like I was leaving something behind. Something I didn't want to lose. My phone buzzed that night. Leela, did I do something wrong? I stared at the message. For a long time. My fingers hovered over the screen. I could tell her. I could explain. I could fix this. But then, I remembered the voices. They're going to ruin their image. My chest tightened again. Slowly I typed. No, I'm just busy. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then. Okay. That was it. No argument. No pushing. And somehow, that hurt the most. The next message came later. From him. Kai, you vanished. I swallowed. My heart started racing again. Even now. Even after everything. I typed. Deleted. Typed again. Deleted again. Finally. I've just been tired. The reply came quickly. Kai, that's not like you. My fingers froze. Not like me. He noticed. Why did that make this harder? Me, people get tired. A pause. Then. Kai, yeah, but they don't disappear. My chest tightened. I didn't reply. Because I didn't have an answer. Chapter 7, The Distance Between Us. He found me anyway. Of course he did. I should have expected it. I was sitting outside, alone, pretending to read something I hadn't actually processed in 10 minutes. You're avoiding us. I didn't look up. No, I'm not. You are. I'm just busy. You're a terrible liar. I tightened my grip on the page. I'm not lying. Then look at me. I couldn't. That was answer enough. He sighed. Not annoyed. Not angry. Just tired. Did someone say something to you? Silence. My silence. It stretched too long. Said too much. They did. I shook my head quickly. No. They did, he repeated. What did they say? Nothing important. If it wasn't important, you wouldn't be acting like this. I stayed quiet. Because he was right. And I hated that he was right. Tell me, he said softly. I don't want to. Why? Because it doesn't matter. It matters if it's making you disappear. Disappear. That word again. I swallowed hard. They said, my voice faltered. I almost stopped. But he was still there. Still waiting. They said I'm ruining things. The words felt heavier out loud. They said, being around me makes people look bad. I forced a small laugh. Like it was nothing. Like it didn't hurt. It's not a big deal. I just thought it'd be better if I. That's stupid. I froze. Because he had never spoken like that before. Not to me. What? That's stupid, he repeated more firmly this time. You don't mean that. I do. They're not wrong. Yes, they are. You don't know that. I do. How? Because I'm there, he said simply. I looked at him. Finally. And nothing about you ruins anything. My chest tightened painfully. You don't see it. No, he said, you don't. Chapter 8, Confrontation. It wasn't him who broke me. It was her. Leela didn't wait this time. Didn't text. Didn't hesitate. She cornered me after school. Literally. I turned the corner, and she was there. Arms crossed. Eyes sharp. Tell me the truth. My heart dropped. I am telling the truth. No, you're not. I am. You're not. We stared at each other. The tension thick. Heavy. Unavoidable. Then what is it? She demanded. Because you don't just wake up and decide to disappear. I looked away. I didn't disappear. You did. I'm still here. Not with us. That hit harder than I expected. Why? She pressed. What changed? Everything. Nothing. Me. Them. The world. I just thought. Don't, she cut in. Don't give me another excuse. Her voice cracked. And that broke something inside me. And don't you dare say you're doing this for us. I froze. Because that was exactly what I was going to say. You think I don't know you, she continued. You think I haven't noticed the way you've been pulling away. I'm not. You are. Silence. Then. It's about Kai, isn't it? My breath caught. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She saw it. Of course she did. You like him. Not a question. A statement. Something undeniable. I felt my face burn. My chest tighten. Everything inside me twist. It doesn't matter, I whispered. It matters to you. No. Yes. No. Yes. I shook my head. It doesn't matter, I repeated, more firmly this time. Because I'm ruining things. You're not ruining anything. I am. You're not. They said. I don't care what they said. Her voice echoed. Louder than I had ever heard it. I care about what you're doing, she continued. And right now, you're hurting people who actually care about you. Tears blurred my vision. I'm trying not to. By leaving. Yes. That's worse. No, it's not. Yes, it is. We stood there. Both shaking. Both stubborn. Both hurting. You don't get to decide what's better for us, she said finally, her voice softer now. You don't get to decide what we're willing to lose. I'm not worth that. The words slipped out before I could stop them. The truth. The thing I had believed all along. She stared at me. Then, you're so stupid. I flinched. Because it hurt. But not in the way I expected. You really think we'd choose reputation over you, she said quietly. I didn't answer. Because yes. I did. And that was the moment everything broke open. Chapter 9, The Breaking Point. After Leela left, I didn't move. I couldn't. Her words stayed. Echoing. You don't get to decide what we're willing to lose. But I already had. Haven't I? That night felt heavier than any before it. The silence in my room wasn't comforting anymore. It was loud. Too loud. Every thought crashing into the next. Every memory replaying. Leela laughing. Kai smiling. The way they looked at me. Like I mattered. And the way I had walked away from that. I'm doing the right thing, I whispered. But the words didn't sound convincing. Not even to me. The next day, I didn't go looking for them. But I didn't avoid them either. I just existed. Somewhere in between. And that's when it happened. Hey. My breath caught. I knew that voice. Of course I did. Slowly I turned. Kai. Standing there. Like he had always been there. Like I hadn't spent days trying to erase myself from his world. You really thought I wouldn't find you, he said. I looked away. I wasn't hiding. You were. I just needed space. You disappeared. That's not the same thing. It is when you don't tell anyone. His voice wasn't angry. But it wasn't light anymore either. It had weight now. And that made it harder to breathe. You don't understand, I said quietly. Then explain it to me. I hesitated. Because once I said it, there was no taking it back. They're talking about you, I whispered. I know. I froze. You know. Yeah. Then why are you still? Because I don't care. You should. Why? Because it affects you. It doesn't. It does. My voice came out louder than I expected. Shakier too. They're saying you've changed, that you're different, that being around me makes you look bad. I forced the words out, each one heavier than the last. They're saying I'm dragging you down. Silence. Then. So. What? So, he repeated. Why aren't you reacting? I am. No, you're not. I just don't agree with them. How can you not care? Because it's not true. You don't know that. I do. How? Because I choose what matters to me. The words hit harder than anything else he'd said. I chose to be your friend, he continued, not theirs. Friend. That word again. Still warm. Still painful. You shouldn't have to lose people because of me. I'm not losing anything worth keeping. That's not your decision. No, he said calmly. It's exactly my decision. I stared at him. Because I didn't understand. Because I couldn't understand. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why are you doing this? He looked at me for a long moment. Long enough that my chest started to ache. Then, because you matter. Everything stopped. Just for a second. Just long enough for it to hurt. Chapter 10, The Truth He Chose. I'm not worth that. The words came out automatically. Like they had been waiting. Like they had always been there. He didn't react right away. Didn't argue. Didn't interrupt. He just looked at me. And somehow, that was worse. Who told you that? He asked quietly. No one. That's a lie. It's not. You don't just wake up and decide that about yourself. I stayed silent. Because I didn't know how to explain something that had always been there. Something that didn't have a beginning. You really think you ruin things? He asked. Yes. Why? Because I always have. That's not an answer. It is to me. He stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough that I could feel it. The shift. The weight of it. You didn't ruin anything, he said. I did. You didn't. I'm doing it right now. No, he said softly. You're just scared. That word again. Scared. I hated it. Because it was true. I'm not scared. You are. I'm not. You are. I clench my hands. I just don't want to hurt you. You're not hurting me. I am. You're not. I will. Then let me decide if it's worth it. I froze. Because. That wasn't how it worked. Was it? You don't get to choose that for me, he continued. Just like I don't get to choose what you're afraid of. My chest tightened. So stop deciding for everyone else, he said. Stop deciding that you're not worth staying for. The words hit deeper than anything else. Because that was exactly what I had been doing. And if I'm wrong, I whispered. If I stay and everything falls apart. He didn't hesitate. Then we deal with it. We. That word felt dangerous. Hopeful. Terrifying. And if people leave, they leave. And if it gets worse, then it gets worse. That doesn't scare you. It does. I blinked. It does, I repeated. Yeah, he said simply, but not enough to walk away. My chest ached. Because I didn't know how to be that brave. I can't do that, I said quietly. You already are. I'm not. You are. How? You're still here. I hadn't thought of it like that. I had been trying to leave. But I hadn't. Not completely. Not yet. And if I can't be enough? I asked. The question slipped out before I could stop it. The real fear. The one underneath everything. He didn't look away. Didn't hesitate. Then you don't have to be. My breath caught. You don't have to be perfect, he continued. You don't have to be easy. You don't even have to be confident. He smiled slightly. You just have to be you. Tears blurred my vision. Because that felt impossible. And yet, for the first time, it also felt allowed. I don't know how, I admitted. You don't have to figure it out all at once. And if I mess up, you will. That's not comforting. It's honest. A small, shaky laugh slipped out of me. And this time, I didn't stop it. Stay, he said. Not as a command. Not as pressure. Just an option. One I had been too afraid to choose. So, I did. Epilogue, not invisible anymore. I didn't change overnight. That would have been easier. Cleaner. Less messy. But real change isn't like that. It's slow. Awkward. Full of steps forward and steps back. There were days I still felt like disappearing. Days I said the wrong thing. Days I stayed quiet when I wanted to speak. Days I almost walked away again. But I didn't. That was the difference. Leela didn't forgive me immediately. She pretended not to at first. You're still annoying, she said one day. I know. But I missed you. My chest tightened. I missed you too. She rolled her eyes. Don't make it emotional. Too late. The group wasn't the same. Some people drifted. Some stayed. And for the first time, I didn't feel like that was my fault. And Kai, he didn't change. Still calm. Still steady. Still looking at me like I wasn't someone to avoid. You're thinking again, he said one afternoon. I always think. Yeah, he nodded, but now you say it out loud sometimes. Progress. I guess. Hey, he added. What? You never told me. Told you what? He tilted his head slightly. What animal you'd fight now? I paused. Then, still not a chicken. He laughed. Growth. Barely. I wasn't invisible anymore. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough. Enough to be seen. Enough to be heard. Enough to stay. And maybe that was more than I had ever believed I deserved. The end. This was brought to you by Romance Hobbit. If this story moved you, subscribe. A new story is already waiting for you.